Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
It's the line that, in at least my opinion, kicked off the modern era of the slasher movie. What's your favorite scary movie? We all have a different answer to that question, but if you're a fan of horror films, you've probably noticed the resurgence in the genre in the past 15 years. Whether it's in movies, books, or on the big screen, horror has soared to new heights in popularity. Screaming and Conjuring, the latest book by Clark Collis, distributed by 1984 Publishing, details that rise of horror in all its bloody glory. First, I want to thank 1984 for this arc of Screaming and Conjuring. This isn't the final edition, though. The final edition upon publication is a truly premium edition that's worth the price. It's got black edges and color photographs. It's a great addition to the finished product. If you want to order it, just use the QR code right on the screen or just use the link in the description. So I love horror movies, going all the way back to watching 1970s classics like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist on VHS in the 90s. It's a wonderful influence on my childhood, to watching Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger rampage through the suburbs. I was pretty hooked on this genre. But the first part of the 1990s saw what many thought was the demise of the slasher genre. We had films like the later Halloween movies, later Friday the 13th movies. They kind of fell flat. It didn't work out. It looked like the genre was kind of on its last legs. Diminishing box office returns added to that. And a new world landscape after the end of the Cold War brought both a new period of optimism and new uncertainty to our world. The fear was no longer about the monster outside, it was focused within. That brought on the rise of TV shows and movies focused on conspiracy theories. In the latter half of the 90s, there was a shift towards a more meta approach to formerly popular stories. The world was evolving, and a simple good versus evil wasn't going to captivate people the way it did in the 80s. Even pro wrestling joined this trend with the onset of the Attitude Era, which erased the whole wrestling is real illusion. Horror films were no exception. They were part of this trend too, starting with Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and then finding solid ground with 1996's Scream. That's largely where Screaming and Conjuring picks up in the first chapters. And as the title suggests, Scream and The Conjuring mostly bookend this study of the evolution of horror in the early 21st century. There is a final chapter that quickly takes us through the following years, throughout the late teens up to 2025 though. However, the meat of the book pretty much focuses on the period from 1996 to the mid-2010s. The book gives you a blow-by-blow account of essentially every horror movie of note that was released in that time period. It's both educational and a trip down memory lane, so for the larger, more impactful titles, there's much more expanded storytelling, focusing on production, cast and crew experiences, director interviews, things like that. Probably my most significant drawback with this book, though, is that each chapter in Screaming and Conjuring represents a year, and Collins mostly goes film by film through that year. While that's informative, it can sometimes give the feel of a names and dates type of textbook. When Screaming and Conjuring gets too bogged down in that formula, just sort of the blow-by-blow account, the book feels like it really lags a bit. It feels more like a textbook than a celebration of the genre that I really love. Where the work really shines, though, is in the times where Collins delves into the themes in the industry and the films that result from them. I wish the entire book had been organized in that fashion instead. I already know there's been a resurgence in slashers over the last 5 years. Give us more insight to why that's happening, though. The author briefly explores the impact of 9/11 on horror movie content and the concept of evil that sort of changed right after 9/11. I found that really fascinating and something we could have used a lot more of in other parts of the book. Still, when Screaming and Conjuring is good, it's definitely a page-turner. The stories behind the origins of Halloween are fascinating. Furthermore, the details of how David Gordon Green took the franchise in a different direction are provided, as well as the involvement of Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter. From 1978 to 2018, Michael Myers has evolved from the boogeyman to a vehicle for films showing the growth and evils of fascism. If you're a fan of James Wan, you'll love the arc of his career path. It's hit on at different points and then returned to later, so don't ever think it's abruptly over when Collins shifts gears. Like a true horror icon, he'll be back. The same can be said for the monumental presence of Wes Craven in this book. Screaming and Conjuring paints figures like Craven and Carpenter as the fathers of modern horror, and they're treated with the reverence they deserve. As a horror fan, I love Screaming and Conjuring. When it's good, it's excellent, and that's enough to overcome the times where the formula can be a little plodding. You'll want to have some passion for the genre going in, though. I probably wouldn't recommend this as the introduction to the genre, but a tool to help fans better understand the nuances of it. If you want an introduction, there's only one way to go. Turn on your TV, go to the movie theater, start Screaming and Conjuring yourself.